We are good and live.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lynn Lewis, the Director of the Financial Empowerment Center at the Urban League. Thank you guys for joining us today, and welcome to the September Wealth Building Wednesday workshop sponsored by Fifth Third Bank. This month, we're super excited to have our topic being how to start investing. And we're really excited to have our subject matter experts on hand with us this evening, Andrew and Fred Tudor from Alchemist Wealth. They'll be joining us this evening, and we will give them a chance to introduce themselves in just a moment. Tonight's session is going to be full of information, so be sure that you're taking plenty of notes as usual so that you don't miss anything. And then I am going to go over a few quick housekeeping rules. For those of you that are watching on Facebook, please remember to like and share this event with your family and friends, because we do want to make sure that we're able to get the word out to as many people as possible. Also, please mute your phone to eliminate any type of background noise and distractions. If possible, please turn on your cameras, because this helps to make the event more engaging, and we really like to see who we're speaking to. Also, we'll be monitoring both chats in Facebook Live and in Zoom. So please be sure that you place all your questions there in the chat, and we will take breaks periodically to answer any questions that you may have. And last but not least, please remember that we will be having a drawing at the end for the most engaged participant that asks questions or shares relevant comments, compliments of Fifth Third Bank. They will be providing a $50 gift card for the person that has engaged with us the most this evening. Now, before we get started, as always, I want to make sure I take the opportunity to turn it over to our sponsors, Fifth Third Bank. We will have our Senior VP of the Community Economic Development Market Manager, Royce Sutton at Fifth Third Bank. Royce, it's all yours.
Lynn, you and I used to be friends. You know, you're having such a good time. No, Lynn and I go way back, and every time she tries to say my title, she just has some real issues.
I'm going to stop. This is the last time.
Yeah. So welcome everybody. I'm Royce Sutton, Senior Vice President, Community and Economic Development Market Manager for Fifth Third Bank. And I'm here tonight because not only am I here to welcome you, because I'm excited about every one of you that decided to join us tonight, but I'm also a student as well. I like to continuously learn, and I'm so excited about our program that we're going to share with you tonight. So it's going to be information where I pick up things, you're going to pick up things, but most importantly, when you leave this session tonight, I can assure you that your thoughts around what it means to grow wealth will be transformed. Your thoughts about what it means to take your family and yourself individually to the next stage when you think about your money and your long-term plans, it's going to change tonight. So we're excited about this partnership with the Urban League and really sharing about how we can build wealth together. It's a process. When anybody who's tried to bake a cake, you know, you can't pull that after you pull all the ingredients together. You can't pull that cake out of the oven after 3 minutes. It takes some time for that cake to actually become something that's delectable, to something that is nourishing, something that you enjoy. And they're going to talk about what it takes to build wealth tonight. And so this wealth is a part of the series that we've been having over the last really couple of years with the Urban League in building wealth. And we've got a couple of sessions. We're going to got some announcements. We're going to talk about some other things that are going on in this space that's going to get you to the next level in your financial journey that we think are going to be absolutely phenomenal. So Lynn, we appreciate this partnership with you and all the Urban League team. Maria's going to get on the line a little bit later. She's on the Fifth Third Bank team as well. But more importantly, the Tudor family, do your thing. You know, share with us tonight, impress us, empower us, and take us to the next level, because we know that's what you do every single day. Everyone sit back, relax, but take great notes, because you're in for a treat tonight.
Thank you, Royce. Fred, Andrew, it's all yours.
You're on mute, Andrew. Thank you, Urban League. Thank you, Fifth Third Bank, for the introduction. We are talking all things investing today. And so I'll give an introduction for myself. I'll let my brother and partner Fred introduce himself. And then we'll roll into what are the ways that we can, first and foremost, understand investing, why it's important, what we do, and then start down the path of investing dollars for the future. And so I think the first question that we all ask is, who are we, right? So I'm Andrew Tudor. I am one half of the Alchemist Wealth team. My background is in actually banking, Fifth Third folks. So business management background, went into banking for 5 years, and then went into insurance and investment planning for an additional 4. And really empowered and excited to work with families in my community and really teach and grow and really learn how to do money well. And so that really led me to looking into what would be the best way, the best structure to do that, and landed on our own firm. We're a registered investment advisory firm. We'll get to that, but our own firm, and then partnering with the person I trust and look up to the most, who's my brother. So I'll let him introduce himself and his background, and then we'll jump into what Alchemist Wealth is.
I'm Fred, and thank you all for joining us today. I like the before the call kicked off, it felt kind of family friendly oriented. So that was kind of cool. I was like, man, I wish I was a part of this family. I wouldn't laugh. So, but no, I'm Fred, Cincinnati, background in business management, concentration in finance, and I also started out in banking also, which is where I was for about 8 or 9 years. And when I transitioned out, one thing I really wanted to do was just help our community think about the possibilities of money differently. And I thought the best way that I could do that was through financial coaching. So I did financial coaching it was about a year. And in that time, I was working with Andrew and where he was and where I was. And then we decided to launch Alchemist Wealth together. So that launched, it'll be 2 years. Just help our community think about Denver possibilities of money differently. I'm glad to be here. I thought the best way that I could do that was
Right. And so the merger, as we talk about, so Alchemist Wealth is really a merger of financial coaching and financial planning. Financial coaching in our industry is really when we think about saving strategies, debt management strategies, how do we budget and manage our cash flow best? How do we do savings plans best? Really working on tactical, everyday management. And then financial planning is really some of the longer term thought processes, as we talked about the wealth building side of things, where we are thinking about investing dollars, we're thinking about insurance planning, thinking about estate planning, we're thinking about college funding, we're thinking about retirement planning. And so what Alchemist Wealth is really a merger of what the two of us did best individually, coming together to really help clients to do both. What we found is that you need both, right? You need, in order to build wealth, you need to have a handle and have good financial habits every day on spending and saving and debt management. And then once you have that under control and working well with that, we really need to know, what do we do with the money we're saving and how do we maximize that and how do we do it the best way possible? So our firm, and we won't spend a lot of time on our firm, we want to spend time, on the topic, but our firm, we really work with couples, women in I would say their younger stages of life, 30s and 40s, where we are working to make sure that we're building and having the right discussions. We're making sure that we're doing the right things and we're building wealth long term. And then the second group we work with are pre-retirees and retirees. Once we've actually done all that work, how do we make sure that we are making the right investment decisions? How do we make sure that we are taking care of our family on the estate planning side? How do we make sure that if we want to stay retired, we can stay retired? And so that's the makeup of our client base. We're 100% virtual and we work coast to coast. So we have clients from New York to LA, but we really enjoy working with our folks in the Cincinnati area because that's where we're born and raised. So for today, we are going to talk about investing. So we do financial planning. It covers a lot of different topics, but the investment part of it is a place where we found that there's a lot of education that needs to happen, and there's a lot of opportunity that we have. And so we love talking about this topic. So today we're going to talk about what is investing? What are stocks and bonds? Why is it important to invest dollars? We're going to talk about the risks of investing. We're going to talk about the different ways that you can invest. So thinking about mutual funds and what index funds are, because they're important. And then last but definitely not least, we're going to talk about how do we tactically get started today, right? We have all this information. What are the things that we need to start doing today? If we're starting our journey of investing, how do we get going? And if we've started or we need to retool and start over, how do we do that? And how would we recommend getting going for that? So this is your session. And we've talked about questions, but we really at this point want to know, and we'll use the chat for this, but what are some questions that you have in the realm of investing, right? Coming into this conversation, what's top of mind? What do you want to make sure we either touch on or talk about? Because our goal is to answer your questions and have you leave better than you came. So we're going to take a couple moments to drop some questions there. And then we'll circle back at the end as we go through the presentation. If we talk about a topic, but we don't answer your question, we're going to come around and make sure we can answer your question so you can walk away with that answer. So we'll give it another 30 to 45 seconds. I see what kind of tools do you recommend using to follow the stock market, to move strategically and not set yourself up for failure? Great question, Keith. We will definitely talk about platforms and resources. And I know that we have some Facebook Live as well. So if there are any of those questions that drop, feel free to send those over as well. Which is best to invest in, taxable or non-taxable? That's a great question. How do I know what's best to invest in? And I'm actually copying these over here so we have them here. Facebook question from April Austin. How do you know when to take risk? Also financially, how do you know when to financially take risk? It's a good question. Can we talk about partial shares and is it actually worthwhile? That's wonderful. We actually are going to talk about fractional or partial shares in here. So keep these questions coming. We'll have some time at the end. We'll try to circle back and grab as many as we can and be a resource as well as we can. So with that being said, we're going to jump in and answer the question, why invest?
So one thing we like to pose, or just a thought or a stat that we've seen around, are people currently investing? A lot of the time, the answer is no. So based on Gallup, they did a survey. I think this was earlier this year, and it's saying that more than 40% of Americans don't own any stocks or stock-based investments. So this number is decreasing with, I'm going to assume, the ability to purchase fractional shares, right? To where there's less fear about not having enough money to invest, which is one reason that some people don't invest. Or also 21% said they don't invest because they don't know enough about stocks to get started. So our goal for today is to, if you're not investing, feel comfortable about knowing enough about stocks and what it means and trying to overcome some of those fears, but then also trying to break down the barrier of, do I have enough to invest? So we'll start basic. What is investing? And before we talk through what is investing, we think it's important to discuss the difference between saving and investing. So what saving is basically the accumulation of excess money. So You make $100. You spend 80. That means you keep 20. So if you're able to earn money, spend less than you make, and hold some, whether it be in a savings account, whether it be under the mattress, wherever it is, if you're spending less than you make, then you're saving your money. But where a lot of the opportunity comes, and we'll kind of talk through this later, why it's important to save and invest. But where a lot of the opportunity comes is once you're saving some money, you want to put that money to work. And that's what investing is, whether that's putting it to work in stocks, bonds, cryptocurrency, real estate. Like there's a lot of different things you can invest in to put your money to work, to where you don't just want to save it, you want to invest it. And also on the other side of that, you don't just want to invest all your money. There are some benefits to saving. So how we like to discuss the topic with our clients is, if you have a goal that is your 1 to 2 years out, less than 2 years, maybe less than 3 years, depending on what it is and how much money you need. You don't want to put those money, you don't want to invest that money. That's money you want to let sit in a savings account. The reason being is what can happen if you're investing in something and you have a goal later this year and you've been putting money in the stock market, for example, and then it's September, stock market has gone backwards and you're trying to pull that money out and it's not as much as you put in. It's hard to hit the goal. It's hard to hit short-term goals when you're investing that money in the market. So that's usually why we tell people, hey, if you have an emergency fund, we're not investing that money, because a lot of times what'll happen when you're trying to pull that emergency fund money out in case of emergency, you don't want that money to have gone backwards in the stock market and you had goals and then you can't make ends meet or do what you need to do in the event of emergency. So we always like to talk about that. Investing in is important, but also being able to save the money is important also. So we've saved some money, and when we're saving it, 9 times out of 10, that money's sitting in cash at the bank. There are some risk of cash sitting in the bank, which we'll talk through later. And I think that was a question out there related to risk. But when we're saving money, we want it to be safe. We don't want it to go backwards as far as losing value. But there are some ways that it can lose value sitting in cash, which we'll talk about. But we want it to earn money and not go backwards. It's not pretty. Cash in the bank is the least pretty cash that I know of, because it doesn't earn a lot of money. The next type of asset that we encourage clients to invest in is stocks. And so what this is you own a percentage of a company. So we like to use Apple, for example. Let's say you want to buy stock in Apple. You give Apple money, they give you ownership in their company. And what that means is if the value of Apple goes up, so they do really well, they make a lot of money, the value of, you gave them $100, now it's worth 120 because the value of their business has gone up, because you're part owner in the company. How that differs from bonds is, a bond is you loaning money to a company. So with the stock, Apple does well, the value of your money goes up. If Apple does poorly, you gave them $100, Apple's going backwards, the value of your money is $80. With bonds, you don't have to worry about that. So with the bond, you loan Apple $100, they say, we'll give you $5 every year at the end of the year, and then 10 years later, we'll give you your $100 back. So you're not worried about Apple doing well. You're not worried about Apple going backwards a little bit. You're making your flat 5% or whatever rate they guarantee that they're going to pay you quarter over quarter or year over year or however it's structured. So with bonds, you can make bonds. You can buy bonds in companies. You can buy them in governments, local governments, municipalities. There's a lot of different ways you can buy bonds. And there are benefits to having bonds and there are benefits to having stocks. And we'll talk through that later with risk. But that's how you would kind of spread out some of the risk in your investments. The last type of investment, we kind of lumped it together because there's a lot of different pieces that go into this. Some types that a lot of people are familiar with or know about or have heard about are real estate. So you buy a house, you put your money in the house. If you're able to sell it for more, then you make money. If you're not able to sell it for more, if you're not able to sell it at all, you lose money. Or if you invest in it and you're going to hold it for a long period of time and the value goes up, that is increasing your investment in real estate. Another one is cryptocurrency, which is, I would say, fairly new, but it's been out for a while now. But gold is one, art is one. There's a lot of different alternative investments that you can put your money into, spread out some of the risk and also just diversify some of your money. So before I move, were there any questions related to?
Yes, we have a lot. I've been writing them down. So let's come back at the end.
Okay.
But yes, we do. And they're great. So a lot of the questions that I've been seeing are about what's a good investment? Where should we put it? Is it better to put money in stocks or bonds? Is it better to put money in cash or stock? Is it better to put money in an individual stock or a mutual fund? Is it better to do cryptocurrency? And the answer is it depends. It's the worst answer we give, but we give it a lot because it really depends on what your goal for the money is. So when we work with clients, before we invest any money, before we make a single recommendation, we go over their goals, their time periods for those goals, how they're going to make the money that they're going to use to invest for those goals. And then we also have assessments that we use and a questionnaire that we use to really try to understand how much risk are they comfortable taking. So when we talk about risk, we are specifically talking about the possibility that the money could go backwards, right? The possibility that your $100 could go down to 90, 80, 50, 20, 0, right? Those are all possibilities with certain investments. And so when we're learning their risk preference, how much risk they're comfortable taking, we also do a financial plan to see how much risk do they need to take or maybe not need to take to achieve whatever their goals are. That determines what the best investment for them is or what the best mix of investments for them are. But here are the ways that we do that. That doesn't help you, right? But here are the ways that we do that. Fred nailed it. If you have a goal that is within 0 to 2.5, 3 years, we're going 3 years now, you should save that money in cash, savings account, so that it cannot go backwards short term. Then we move into bonds, which are safer than stock. And so as we're going up this ladder, we're getting more and more risky, which are really more and more volatile. They move a little bit more and they have some short-term possibility of going backwards. Bonds, unless the company goes out of business or unless the government goes out of business, which some governments do file bankruptcy, you should be getting your dollars back for that bond. That's a loan that you're a creditor for them. So it has upside because they're paying you interest on those dollars, but it doesn't have as much upside as if you were an owner. Back to Fred's scenario, if you put $100 in Apple and you buy a bond and they pay you 5%, so they're going to pay you $5 a year. If Apple doubles, they're going to pay you $5 a year, right? So you don't get as much upside, but you also don't carry as much downside either. The further we go up this chain, the more upside there is, and potentially more downside there is as well. So there's a trade-off with risk and return that we have to be comfortable with, or else it really doesn't make sense to go up the chain of kind of these investments. Then we have stock. Fred talked about it. This is equity. Some people call it equity, but I'm an owner in the company. Whatever I'm putting money in or buying ownership in, I'm riding the wave with that company, and hopefully that company is doing well year over year and the value is increasing. We're going to come back to mutual funds, but that's a group of stocks. And in all of these, you can typically buy into a portfolio of stock, a portfolio of bonds, a portfolio of startups. So we'll get to, instead of buying one stock, buying 100 stocks at the same time. But the risk still applies, right? 100 stocks still have the ups and downs of the market, and we'll get there. Usually when you're buying stock in a company that has been established for a while. It's traded on the New York Stock Exchange. They've had to go through some analysis from regulators that they're legitimate. They have the money they say they have. They send audited financials every year. So even though stocks can be more risky, if you're buying it on an app or you're buying it through exchange, they're established companies. Startups are not. And so you can invest in startups. There's ways to do that. You can, there's Fundrise, which is one way you can do it at a lower dollar amount. There's crowdsourced ways you can do it now. But you must know that that is a new company. And there are stats out there that 1 in 5 businesses within 5 years, close their doors. So that applies to the startups as well. So a startup investment is more risky than a established stock that's on the Dow or the S&P 500, which is all just saying it's on an exchange, but it has more upside as well. That if the startup does better, you should make more money for taking more risk. And then at the tippy top, we have cryptocurrency. We will go into very shortly what it is, but the most important piece is that it is extremely volatile and they're newer. So most cryptocurrencies are also startups, and people have made a lot of money, allegedly, but seriously, people have made a lot of money with cryptocurrency investments. There's a lack of data and there's a lack of experience of a market that's mature. So it's a lot more volatile and a lot more risk than even a startup and stocks and bonds at the bottom. So what we really want to figure out when we're making a recommendation or creating a portfolio or talking to a person, how much risk are you comfortable taking? How much reward are you looking for? And what we find is that a lot of times people are looking for more reward than they're willing to take in risk. And so we have to make sure that we understand what the risk and reward rates are, what we think we'll get back, and then also what the downsides are. If you see an investment and they do not talk about the downsides, they do not talk about the risk, they do not talk about scenarios in which your money goes down or you may not get it back. If they don't go through that with you, I would be skeptical that I'm not getting the full story, because every investment has risk. And so savings accounts have risk. And we're going to talk about the risk of savings accounts on this next slide. So the question of why should we invest, I think usually is sometimes hard to explain to people how cash can be have some risk attached to it. But we're currently living in a time where inflation is 8%. So the cost of buying groceries, flying, car rental, transportation, housing, healthcare, all of those things increase every year. In the history of, the last 90 years or so, That's been about 3% a year. We're currently living in an 8% inflation time. But if you start the year with $1 and inflation goes up 8%, you end the year with 92 cents. That's your purchasing power. It goes down, it erodes. So we still need cash. We need cash for our emergency funds. We need cash for our short-term goals. But outside of needing those dollars for emergency and things that are on the horizon soon, we really encourage clients to put the rest of their dollars to work so that at least they're actually growing in purchasing power. So we want to say getting 3-4% in real dollars after inflation and then after taxes. So what most people that we talk about are unaware of is that if your savings account, if you have enough money in your savings account that they pay you interest, that interest is taxable. So the rate of return you get on your savings account is reduced by taxes and inflation. And so what we're looking at, historically, cash has done 3.4% a year. After inflation, it's 0.5. And then after the taxes on that 3.4, we actually lose money on cash almost every year. So it's safe, but it actually erodes with time. Bonds, on average, we have gotten a 5.5% rate of return. So that means we start with $100 and they pay us 5.5% per year. We end the year with $105.50. After that 3% inflation, it's 2.6%. And after the taxes we pay on those bonds, it's 0.6%. So bonds have usually kept up with taxes and inflation, but just barely. And so investing is important, specifically investing in stocks, bonds, other things that would at least outgrow inflation are important, because if we get on average what we've gotten, which is 10% in stocks, so we start with $100, we end with $110. After that 3% inflation, we've still got in real dollars $107. And then after they tax us for the return we got on the stock, we actually made in real dollars 5%. And if we multiply that over years and years, or like a retirement plan, or we're talking about 10, 20 years down the road, that turns out to be a lot of money in compounding interest. And so we have to put money to work. We need our money to work at least as hard as inflation. It needs to work at least as hard as inflation and the tax man, because they all work really hard every year. So let's jump to, what is a mutual fund? So I alluded to it a little bit earlier. A mutual fund is just a group of stocks or a group of bonds. And so we could take our $100 and we could buy, we've been talking Apple, so we'll stay there. We could buy one share of Apple, which we can't really, it's like 130, but let's say we could buy one share of Apple. So we take our $1 and we put all our eggs in the Apple basket. Dang, the Apple basket. We're taking on risk by giving all our money to one company. Even though it's a good company, even though I have a lot of Apple products, we're still in one basket, right? And we've seen over time that even our most safe, old, sturdy companies can fall out of the sky in value very quickly. The one I lived through with clients was GE. GE's fall from, I think it was over 100 and something, it was over 140 down to $9, is proof that we need to diversify our dollars away from other companies, away from just one company. So instead of buying $100 in Apple, we can buy $100 in, let's say, the S&P 500, which is the Fortune 500 or the 500 largest companies in America. So there are computers and there are mutual funds that can spread out all of your money across 500 companies with just that $100. And we highly recommend it. It spreads out the risk. And over time, if one or two of them dive or go bankrupt or go through scandal, it's only one of 500 stocks in your portfolio. So there's a lot of different types of mutual funds. We're starting with mutual funds because that's the blanket umbrella. Underneath, we have index funds, which an index is a specific group of stocks. So you can have a tech index, you can have a large index, you can have a healthcare index. And so you're buying $100 into healthcare and it spreads it out across maybe 35 healthcare companies. So that's an index fund. But there are lots of different mutual funds and a lot of different index funds that you can use. I saw a question pop in about ETFs. ETFs are very similar to index funds. They're basically mutual funds that you can trade. So on exchanges, so exchange traded funds. That's what the ETF stands for. And they act very similar to this. We won't go into some little nuances of how they're different, but on the large scale, they're the same, right? You take one transaction and you can do it at small dollar amounts, $5, $10, $25, and they'll spread it out across 100, 500, 1,000 companies so that you don't carry the risk of having all your eggs in one basket. The one I don't want to skip over because it's down here is target date funds. I think it's really important to touch on what those are. A target date fund is a fund that you decide to buy into based on when you need the money back. So the most common one is a retirement account. If you say, I'm planning on retiring in 2040 because, you know, I'm 48 and I want to be out of here by 58. Or I'm 40 and I want to be out of here by 58, right? That's 18 years down the road. They'll be more aggressive when you have more time. And then as you get closer and closer to that date, it gets safer and safer so that you don't lose all the money you accumulated. I think of those as a crock pot, and you don't have to watch it. You set it, and when it's done, it slows down and cools off so you don't burn your pot roast or whatever you're cooking in there. So we like target date funds for retirement. We really like target date funds for college funding as well. If you have a kid that's 5 and in 13 years, they'll be going off to school, you can find a target date fund for the year that they go off to school, and they'll do that for you and slow it down so that you don't save and invest all this money. And then the year before they go to school, the market goes down 50%, takes it with you. So those are mutual funds. We'll move on, but we're going to come back to good questions.
Last but not least, how to get started. There are a lot of different platforms that you can actually sign up for on your phone. There are a lot of platforms that you can only sign up on your phone, but you can sign up, you can create an account, and you can invest as little money as you have up to as much money as you have. So a lot of platforms that we usually recommend for clients for different type of accounts is Fidelity. They're a bigger company. A lot of the reason that we recommend them is because a lot of the transactions and a lot of their different funds are free. Same with E-Trade. They're a bigger company. There's a lot of different things you can do with E-Trade. And then one that has popped up that's been newer compared to the other two is Robinhood. And Robinhood is one you can do on your phone. Fidelity is one you can do on your phone. And I believe E-Trade you can do on your phone too. And so what that looks like, you could download an app. They'll have you create a profile. So, I mean, there's a lot of different softwares and things where you've created a profile before, but for this is similar to opening a bank account. So all the information that goes there, name, address, social, et cetera. And then what you can do is link a checking account or a savings account to one of these platforms, and you would just transfer the money onto one of the platforms. Once you have the money on the platform, there are a lot of different options for where you can invest And it's, if you're new to it, it can be overwhelming. And I guess that's that's another reason why a lot of people don't get started. They don't know what to buy. They don't know how much to buy. So I think it's safe. We usually encourage people to buy what you know. So if you look around and you got a few Apple products, buy Apple, right? If you look around and you got some Microsoft products, you're wearing Nikes, you buy a lot of Nikes, then you would feel comfortable buying that. That usually helps people feel more comfortable. They're buying something they know, they're more interested, they're more vested in how it's doing. And that, I think that goes a long way, because you'll do things like you'll go to a store over and over and over. I mean, a lot of people go to Target, right? They go a lot, and it's like, man, I'm spending a lot of time in Target. Like maybe I should invest some money here. So when you're trying to think about what to invest in and you want to buy something, you know, that's a good idea. Another thing to think through as far as what to buy, he mentioned retirement target date funds. And so this is another piece of an easier barrier to entry to getting started. So through your employer, if they offer retirement accounts, we encourage you to sign up for that. A lot of employers, not all, but a lot of employers, if they do offer a retirement account, they also offer a match to however much you contribute. And if you're able to, for example, if they're matching up to 3%, we encourage you to at least try to hit 3% in there. Be aware, if you can't hit the 3%, start with 1, right? If you put in 1, they'll give you that 1 also. But then the thing about investing is once you start investing and you're more aware of it, after some time, I think you'll gradually be able to increase how much you're saving, or you'll gradually be able to increase how much you're investing, because it's just something you're paying attention to. Like, hey, I've been putting 1% in for a year. I got this much money in there. Like, all right, is there anything I can do to kind of increase this to 2%? If I can't do it now, what are some things I can do throughout the year that maybe at the end of the year I can increase it to 2% or 3%? So if it's something that's right in front of you, you're actually more aware of it and you pay more attention to it. So one way to get started outside of these platforms is through your employer. So a lot of employers, they're making it easy. If they don't, you can't figure it out, I'll throw us out there. If you can't figure out how to get a hold of your employer's information or how to get started, you can shoot us an email. We'll say, hey, let's try to figure this out together, because that is a big piece. They're giving away free money sometimes, and it's a really good way to get started. To go along with, if you don't know what to invest in, I kind of said the target date fund, because a lot of times with your employer accounts, they don't give you a ton of options of what to invest in. It might be limited to like 10 or something like that. It could be more than that. But what they'll do is they'll say, we have a target date fund for 2025. We have a target date fund for 2030. We have a target date fund for 2035. So like on 5-year increments, they'll have a fund to where as it gradually gets closer to that date, it'll become less risky. And all that means is they're taking out some stock, which is more risky, and they're moving that money into bonds, which is less risky, more safe. So outside of that, you can do target date funds through Fidelity. You can do target date funds through your employer. You can buy one stock if you're comfortable with something through Fidelity, each Robinhood, all of these places, and just be comfortable there. The big thing is get started. The big thing is you don't need a lot of money. If you got $25 a month and that's all you can afford to invest, then that's all you can afford to invest. There's a lot of different sites around education and different type of educations, around different types of accounts, around different rules of thumb. So Investopedia, Napkin Finance, or NerdWallet are the 3 that I personally lean on for different things. If there's something I'm looking for, I might I might do a Google and search and look at some of these different places because they have a lot of information that can answer a lot of different questions. With that, we can start to hit some of the questions.
Ooh, okay. All right. I'm going to start from the top. Let me do this. Lynn, how much time do we have to dive into questions?
We have 15 minutes. We end at 6:30.
15 minutes.
14 minutes because it's 6:16.
Gotcha. 14 minutes. I love it. I love it. Okay. What kind of tools do you recommend using to follow the stock market to move strategically and not set yourself up for failure? Tracking the stock market, whatever app you use will have a really good platform. So if you choose Fidelity or E-Trade or Vanguard or whatever, it will have a good one to do. I track on my phone because I have an Apple. Man, they owe me money. And they have a stocks app, and that's what I track. So I pick all the ones I want to track, and I check that a lot. What is the best to invest in, taxable or non-taxable? Great question. Non-taxable versus taxable. So when we talk about non-taxable, those are typically retirement accounts or college accounts. The government makes a deal with you. They say, if you promise to spend it on retirement, I promise I won't tax it until you get there. So there's strings attached to non-taxable accounts. They're not going to just give it to you. So the question is, when do you need the money and what's the money for? There are a lot of things that taxable money is best for. Anything before retirement, anything that's not education, taxable. And when we say taxable, that's just a regular brokerage account or a regular investment account. That's also taxable. So we like both because they both serve different purposes. Fred, how do I know what's best to invest in? Yeah, I set you up for that one.
Yeah, no, I tried to answer that. So, because I think I read that one before. Buy what you know is what we usually encourage. And there's a lot that goes into this. When we're thinking about risk, when we're thinking about what are we investing for, when we're thinking about our time frame or our time horizon or when we're going to be needing the money, all of those things dictate what we'll buy. If we're trying to do something with money in the next 2 or 3 years, like we don't want to invest in a startup business, right? Because they're not going to be paying us out in the next couple of years. But if we're trying to long-term save for retirement, I guess I know where I can answer this. If we're saving for retirement, employer funds, you want to try to get to however much they're matching. And then if you're able to hit that number, we encourage you to start a brokerage account. So we want you to save first. I think one question I saw, save or invest. We want you to save some money first. Saving is important because you need money for an emergency. And you don't want your emergency money to be in the stock market, because if it goes backwards and then you need it, you're up a creek. Okay, so we're saving. And then we're starting to save for retirement. So we want to look at our retirement money opportunities. If your employer does not have a retirement account, Fidelity offers accounts to where you can put retirement dollars. And then you're thinking about, what do I put the money in? In Fidelity, they offer target date funds, which is usually what we recommend. And then outside of that, buy what you know. If you want to do some stock picking where you're picking individual stocks, buy what you know. If you like certain indexes, I'm a tech person, then you'll buy a tech index. Like if you work in healthcare, you might buy a healthcare index. Just buy different things that you're familiar with.
Yeah. I want to add one. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say there's a lot of ways you can answer that, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the one thing I like to tell folks to do is pick an amount and stick to that amount. So and I like to do weekly personally. So $10 a week, $20 a week, have that money transfer over to an account and you'll start accumulating money in the account. and I would jump in and buy something with that $20. There's a question about fractional shares. Fractional shares means that I don't have to buy I don't need $130 to buy Amazon stock. I can buy $5 worth of Amazon stock with no transaction fee, no account fee, and I can take $5 and be $5 invested in the Apple. So I would pick an amount that you can build the habit. I like weekly. It could be per paycheck, but if you get paid every 2 weeks and it's $20 or $40 or $80 or whatever it is, I would set up an automatic transfer and then remind yourself to go in when you transfer it and buy a stock that you want, or invest it into a mutual fund if you don't want to buy individual stocks. I'm going down. Save before you invest. Yes. People do want to invest and they don't have saving habits, and you're investing your savings. So if you don't have savings or you're not building savings, there's no monies there to invest. So you kind of have to do both.
I think one thing there to think about is you have to have money left over to save. Like, so you can't just say, okay, I want to invest and then start investing, because what happens on the back end, if you run out of cash, then you're picking up debt. So like, you want to be aware of how much money are you spending? Do I have extra money that I can save? Okay, I do. Do I have extra money that I can invest? Okay, I do. So like, it's not just, okay, I'm going to invest today. Like, just, you have to look at your money and see, like, does it make sense? Can I do it? Do I need to change some things first before I can get there?
I have a question I love. Is it best to wait for the economy to get better before you invest? This is counter to our emotions, but you should invest today. The reason is the price is cheaper today. So stock are one of the only things that when they go on sale, nobody wants them. If you like a sweater that's $100 and at Macy's and all of a sudden it's $70, that's still a good sweater. It's just cheaper. And these companies are still good companies. They're just cheaper. And so buy the dip. I see there. Also, nobody knows what the stock market is going to do next month. No one knows if it's up or down next month. Over time, if you look at every year for the last 100 years, the stock market is up 3 out of every 4 years. So that's from 1929 to 2019, or 1929 to 2009, yeah, 90 years, which means that you win a lot more than you lose, right? But you have to be willing to stay in the game when it goes down. And I would start sooner than later. Is it better when investing to have a money manager who you can speak to for questions versus investing online or on an app? Fred, you want it? You want me to take it?
There's a lot of accounts you can invest in that indexes, yeah, like the S&P 500, so the biggest 500 companies. Or if you want to, like I said, invest in tech companies. When you're talking to a professional, really what you're doing is trying to get an idea of your risk tolerance. So that was a question: how do you know your risk tolerance? There's assessment. We offer assessments to our clients that they do that factor how much risk they're willing to take. We look at their dollars and we see how much risk can they take. Like you're not comfortable taking all this risk, or like your income can't afford this much risk. So that's a factor. And that's something that a professional will be able to talk to you about. Hey, you need this much money at the end. This is how much risk you should be taking. These are the type of funds that offer this much risk. This is how you're tracking towards whatever goal you set. So a professional can do that. There are tools out there to which you can do that yourself. Are they all in one place? There are some places that have some of the tools. But to answer the question about a professional, they have different insights. They've seen different clients. But it also comes down to, you can do all the work yourself, which takes a lot of time, especially if it's something that you're new to. So it's a matter of, do you want to take the time to learn it and be the expert there? If you don't have the money to pay somebody, that's a lot of times what people do. But if you're able to find a professional in a price range that you can afford, I would encourage to at least have a conversation to see, and you can tell them like, hey, this is what I do. Does this make sense? We have intro calls with clients like, hey, this is what we're doing. Does this make sense? We'll say whether it's something we can help them with. We'll say whether they're on the right track. We'll say, hey, you need our help, or hey, you don't. So they'll be straight up with you.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Most of the things that we help clients do with investing, we're setting it up, we're coaching them and managing their expectations and emotions throughout. We're helping give them insights, but we're not picking better investments than they are. We're not, watching a stock and buying in or out. Most money managers can't predict the market better than you can. But also most people, their emotions get in the way of making good, sound, long-term investing decisions. So the coaching part is the value. And there's been a lot of studies in it. The value is in the behavioral management of investing, to not be too greedy or too fearful. But to have a person do that costs money. And for getting started, typically you don't have the money. Or you don't have the portfolio that's big enough that manager will work with you and take a percentage of it. So I think everyone has to learn. And the best investors that work with money managers still practice and can make sound decisions and are aware of what's going on. So I'm looking at time. I see a 6:28. I'm with you, Lynn. I'm with you, T.I. We here. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So there was a question in the chat, I think from, I don't know, I just lost it. So this is a question in the chat, I guess, from Royce. Has this been, and it was to everyone, has this been a subject topic that you would like for us to repeat in the future? So that's a question that Royce is posing to the audience on Facebook as well as on Zoom. If it's a yes, please put the yes in the chat so we can know how to move forward. But this has been a very informative session. Personally, I've been to a lot of sessions where individuals talk about investing, and this is probably the best session where it's been explained to where everybody can understand it. You're not talking over anybody's head. You're not talking down to the audience. It's right where we all can get it and right where we all can understand it and grasp it. So thank you guys. Kudos for that. I really appreciate that with your delivery method, with the way you communicate with the audience. It's very refreshing and very enlightening. So kudos, good job. I also want to share before we get out of here today that we do have some upcoming sessions. Tiara, if you could drop in the chat about our lunch and learn on September 29th, I believe it is on a Thursday from 11 to 12. We're going to have a segment on life insurance, how to protect your loved ones. And it's going to be hosted by Charlene Davis from C. Renee HR Consulting. She will be speaking to our audience about life insurance because life insurance is for those that are left behind. You want to make sure that they have the income that they need to continue on their lives. And then also we have upcoming in October, on October the 8th, we will have our e-bus in our Dayton area. Maria, is it Five Rivers?
It's the Five Rivers Health Center. I did send the flyer, yes, in Dayton.
Yes.
And we'll also be at Central State and Wilberforce University. So, and in Cincinnati, we will be in Lincoln Heights on Monday, the 3rd, and we'll be talking about home ownership. There'll be loan officers, there'll be people from the Home Ownership Center of Greater Cincinnati, and it should be exciting as well. So come on, join us on the e-bus, October 3rd through the 8th.
Hey, one other great announcement, Maria, Lynn. I just want to make sure that for those who are thinking about this area of investing, home ownership is one of the greatest tools that you can use toward investing. We have a virtual home ownership workshop this Saturday, 12 o'clock virtual. If you're interested in that workshop, we're going to talk about every aspect of the home ownership journey that can help you get to that next step of home ownership. Again, that's this Saturday, the 24th at 12 noon, virtual.
And then last but not least, once you guys log off of the session today, you will receive a survey. Please, please, please complete that survey. That gives us great feedback to help us know how we're doing. And also there's going to be a question on there asking you to tell us about other sessions that you want us to bring back like this one, or if you want us to do any other topics, we need your input and feedback so we can know how to plan going forward, especially looking into the 2023 year. It's 6:32, so I do apologize for going over. Are there any last minute quick words that Andrew or Fred you want to say?
We have the screen Alchemist Wealth on Facebook and Instagram. We do a lot of tips. Feel free to communicate with us there. And thank you for having us, and love to rejoin again.
Thank you guys. We appreciate you guys. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
And the winner is.
I'm sorry, Mara. Oh, the winner. We forgot.
Yes.
And the winner is, somebody would be really mad if you didn't tell them. Robert Johnson, come on down. You are the winner tonight. Thank you so much, everybody, for your interaction. And I will get your information and send you a gift card. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
All right, good night.